The video, I think it was created by the tech company behind TikTok, Dance. They came up with, the second sort of iteration of this platform, and it was Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise in like a fight scene. I don't know if either of you saw that.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, what are you if no one had told you that was AI content, would you have looked at that and thought, oh yeah, that's a promotional video for a new film? Welcome back to another ProfileTree episode. I'm here with Dylan and Michelle today. And today we're going to be discussing, I suppose, the state of video marketing in 2026. We're already almost 2 months into the year. But I suppose just to kind of step back and take a look at where we are currently, some sort of recommendations and thoughts on strategy for the year ahead. Just to kick us off, I love a statistic. A report by Wise Oil last year concluded that 85% of consumers say watching a video has convinced them to buy a product or service. So I think, when you hear a statistic like that, it's difficult to kind of continue to ignore the power of video as a business, whether you're a major size corporation or a small business or a sole trader even. Even consumers, it's clear that consumers still trust people. Another report last year found that 61% of marketers now work with nano and micro influencers, which could be, online creators with as few as 2,500 followers, because they still tend to deliver better engagement and campaign performance. So I think even just sort of considering those, do we think businesses are still sort of relying on traditional content, or do we think they're kind of starting to wake up to the importance of video?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we love video, so it's always been a big part of our strategy. But I think it's becoming even more and more essential, especially with we're seeing a range of content. We've got obviously AI coming in, which we're getting loads of AI written content, AI social media posting, and video is that way to really stand out for that authenticity, to give a real insight into your business, to really connect emotionally with your audience. So I think it's actually never been more important ever to have video as part of your strategy, in that it is a way to really stand out and show your point of difference and actually show that humanity side and emotionally connect with your audience. We're seeing, as you say, Laura, those stats that marketers, it's part of their stack now, whereas video used to be a nice to have, and if we can afford it, and that's what people would have used it for. But now people expect it, viewers expect it, your audience expects it. And more importantly than that, it's never been more accessible for small businesses to actually create video. And it is all about authenticity. We see YouTube, we see influencers, everybody wants that raw content. There's a time and place for the very polished corporate stuff, but people really want to see the behind the scenes. They don't mind that it's a wee bit shaky. They don't mind that the camera's not 100%. So that YouTube era has really given us that access into creating content for our small businesses that we never really had before. And then layer that with AI and the technology that's coming in there. And I do think AI video technology, it's still a way to go, but it is coming, and it's something that we need to, as small businesses, really filter into our workflows and see how that might become part of our processes. And what I mean by that is bringing into process, can it help us with B-roll? Can it help us do something a bit more creative that we wouldn't generally have budget for? But how do we build that in, but maintain the real person and the authenticity? So there's a lot happening, and I think it's something that we need to draw on and start to build into our strategy. And I'm going to stop and let somebody else talk at this stage, but I lead into Dylan. The importance of video on website, on social media for SEO, and even that idea of shorts is becoming even more and more important. Again, that expectation that people want that information quickly, they want it succinctly, and they don't want to read reams and reams of descriptions about products. They want to just see it in action in a video. And Dylan, I know you'll lean into this and tell us a little bit about the SEO side of it and how video can really boost your traffic and keep people on site for a bit longer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And any I guess any project we would work on, with a website, we would always be encouraging our clients to include videos in, their website in as many places as they possibly can, especially blog content. Google responds really well to having videos in. And the reason for that is, given, all the AI there is out there now for content creation, textual content, it's obviously a lot easier to create content now than it ever was. But, AI with the video side of things, yes, it's obviously gotten a lot better, but I don't think it's quite there yet in terms of completely replacing video. I know, Michelle, you'll strongly agree on that. But what it's allowed us to do, and I guess what it's allowed our clients even to do, is before, you mentioned their videos were sort of a nice to have thing. It was, if you have the budget, then by all means add the videos in. But now with AI and certain elements that you can sort of utilize within it, people are able to put more videos on their website. We live in a world now where people don't spend all that much time reading anything anymore. People will click in, they'll read the big headings, and then they'll scroll down the page and try and find what they're looking for very quickly. And that's where video is really important, because especially for, service-based or even product-based, but anything really at all that needs a bit of a description, description at all, it sort of needs the video to explain it. And also it gives that personal aspect as well to the business. So, it's, either the owner of the business or somebody that works within the business that's actually explaining their service or their products. And I think people buy into that more than, if it's textual or anything along those lines.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something about video content that feels like much less of a hard sell than a traditional advertising campaign. You're much more likely to actually listen and engage. And like we talked a lot about the human connection side of it. And I think uh, right or wrong with the sort of surge in AI content, we're almost seeing like a renaissance. It's almost like thinking of yesteryear, back when people stood in front of a camera and spoke. But I suppose when you create a cultural scarcity, it's going to make people sort of crave that human connection even more. So I suppose it's about finding the balance um behind, using AI tools for video marketing to your advantage. So obviously you can use things like AI editors. There's amazing voiceover tools out there that can effectively mimic you to save you time and save you budget. But it's still really, really good to, take a few minutes out of the day, get in front of the camera and talk to your customers or potential customers and start to build that connection. Um, because without it, you're not really going to see the same sales leads coming in. You're going to have to actually go out and find your customers directly. But it's a really good way to engage with them. And like we're talking, it's all again about having several channels, whether you're starting on your social media with some basic reels, like going back to a YouTube channel, or you're getting those videos on your site, because I suppose we use this word a lot, but video content is often evergreen. Something that you maybe recorded and produced 7 years ago could still be relevant. And even if it's maybe not perfectly factually up to date, it's still could have a good impact on, for example, website traffic. We talk a lot about including video on content, and a big part of that is time on site. Google absolutely loves it, and it's still really, really important. Um, I mean, there's obviously certain drawbacks to AI video content. Like I saw last week, there was I don't know if either of you saw it, and it started to make me think about, could I tell AI content versus um authentic content? Because I would have said maybe 6 months ago I could, but I'm starting to get to the point where I would question my abilities. The video, I think it was created by the tech company behind TikTok, Dance. They came up with the second sort of iteration of this platform, and it was Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise in like a fight scene. I don't know if either of you saw that.
Yeah, yes, does.
I mean, what are you when you if no one had told you that was AI content, would you have looked at that and thought, oh yeah, that's a promotional video for a new film?
Yeah, but I know the technology is going to be amazing, and that's why I think, Laura, you're right when we're saying we want to start building these tools into our toolkit for video, because it helps us scale up our video production as well. If we can use those editors, those bits for B-roll, a bit maybe of stock, it helps us to build our sort of video bank out bigger and bigger, which, let's be honest, editing a video, especially if you're not an expert in it, can take quite a bit of time. But with these video editors that you click a button that removes the ums and the ahs, you click a button that adds your transitions, you click a button, it adds B-roll. It's never been easier to do it. So it really helps with that scalability piece. And again, I'm going to torture you, Dylan, and ask about Search Console. So I see as well, obviously video in the past few years is pulled into Google search. You'll see YouTube videos being pulled in as maybe number 1, number 2, as a search result rather than just here's websites. And it's really interesting just to see that Google Search Console's now pulling in those social aspects. And I was actually looking at our own for Learnable this morning, and it was really interesting just to see that it was actually pulling in all our YouTube stats, telling us how people were coming from YouTube to the website, what videos were important, what people were searching for. Again, another way to reach those audiences that are searching for different things. How can we meet those different needs? Because, you know, as Laura, as you alluded to, people are searching in different ways. Some people like reading, some people like listening, some people like watching. How do we make sure that we're doing all of those different things, but also have time to run our business and do everything else that we have to do? But interesting to see that coming in as a feature on Search Console, Dylan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that sort of, it proves that video marketing is important, because that's why, Google obviously owning YouTube, they know that video content is important, and it's, I think YouTube is the second biggest search engine on the web. And that's above Bing, Internet Explorer, all that sort of thing. So obviously Google sits number 1 and probably forever will, but it's crazy to think that, a traditional browser, YouTube is beating the rest of them. And the reason for that is, you said it there, Michelle, some people prefer to watch videos. Some people prefer to listen to the likes of podcasts and things like that. And then there is some people who still prefer to, to read content. But yeah, it's really interesting to see all of those stats being brought into Google Search Console. And again, as a sort of side note, we would always be encouraging as many people that is doing any sort of marketing to make sure that they have analytics base behind this. Is, obviously Google Analytics has always been pretty good. YouTube side of things may be a bit more limiting, but I do feel like, this is a massive step forward, that it's bringing it all together. You're not having to look in, two different places to sort of see how everything's performing. And again, your YouTube performing is as critical as your website performing, especially in certain industries. We know that, yes, there is certain industries that video doesn't work just as well on. If you think, and I guess this leads into AI content as well, there's certain industries, if you think of maybe something skydiving orientated, if these guys are wanting to do a promotional video, you can only imagine how much that costs them, fuel in a plane, things like that. AI can probably create something. It's not going to be perfect, of course, and Laura, you're probably going to be able to spot it, but overall, that is going to save that company, or any company like that, instead of having to go use the resources to actually replicate their service that may be very costly. They can use AI. We've already seen it on certain, advertising campaigns from, big companies. It is that sort of entry point of being able to use AI to do these massive things that you could never ever do before. But yeah, again, it just proves it's important. It's as important to do video content as it is to do any other sort of generic SEO and textual content. And this add to Google Search Console is a perfect sort of example of that happening.
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest determining factors for people whenever we maybe talk to a lot of smaller businesses, micro businesses, sole traders, is that they are worried about things like time and money, two things that are generally quite shy of if you run a business, especially if you maybe don't have a team or a big team behind you. I think it's about maybe sitting down and actually coming up with a feasible strategy. And, you could sit down, you could talk to ChatGPT about your business, make sure that it knows as much information as possible and say, look, can you come up with a reasonable video strategy that requires I can commit to, say, 2 hours a month in terms of recording? I think people are forgetting that, 2 hours a month of recording could generate a bank of content that could do you for several months, because like we said, AI editors, not only can they edit footage straightforward, but they can also create, we've got tools like CapCut. They can all sort of create clips for you for things like YouTube. And I had seen also, I think Neil Mohan, the CEO of YouTube, had posted his annual letter at the start of the year, and he'd said that the platform itself is coming out with 3 new AI creation features this year, which is going to help creators to make their shorts using their own likeness, produce games from text prompts through the experimental playables program, and also experiment with music creation tools. So, again, you've got a free platform like YouTube there. Well, we're saying free for now, obviously, like we were saying, these things can potentially come across a payment gateway, but there's so much options there, and you don't need necessarily to be a creative. I think that's another kind of detractor for a lot of people, is they think, well, I'm not clever or creative like all these influencers or people that are sort of online creators. Like Michelle, do you often see that where businesses are thinking, like you were saying, Dylan, oh, my business is a consultancy, like how can I make that really interesting or exciting? Do you find that a lot where people are quite worried about how to be creative with it or how to sort of approach it?
Yeah, and I think the main thing with that is Laura, most people that are running a business or involved in a business or working for a business forget that they're actually experts in their field. They know the business inside out, they know the products inside out, they know the services inside out, and they forget that they have this knowledge at their fingertips. And most people within different businesses, if they've, especially if they've been there a little while, could probably go on and do reams of video content if you just give them the right topic. And that's why I'm saying I kind of wanted to mention Search Console, because that gives you a really great inspiration. If you look in Search Console and you see what people are searching for your website, what pages people are visiting, what questions people are asking, there's your inspiration for your videos. So if you're kind of stuck and as you say, Laura, you're thinking, oh, my business isn't really that exciting. What could I do? I'm not really creative. People actually want information. They want to be educated, they want to be entertained, or they want to be inspired. And that's what we always say. That's what videos should be. Either you're inspiring, you're entertaining, or you're educating people. And an education piece could just be a little bit about, here's a product, this is what it can do, this is the use cases, that's what I use it for. And that piece is really, really important. And to reverse it back, thinking about that planning side of it, people kind of panic and they say, oh, I don't have the creativity. But if they actually just sit down, see the data that they have, and then start to form a plan, and that could be just sitting down with a team brainstorming, like, what do clients ask? What do people phone up? What
Yeah.
what what FAQs are people looking at on our website? You could make a wee series of videos just on the FAQs, and it's something that you probably don't even need to script because you have it in your head and you're answering it daily. So it's just being probably creative in the planning rather than wanting to be this big Hollywood production on camera. And I just wanted to say as well, Laura, around the YouTube, like shorts are on fire, whether that be shorts on YouTube, TikTok, Reels, in Facebook stories, they're on fire, and they are 20, 30, 40 seconds. So you do not need to be on camera for 2 hours. It doesn't need to be War and Peace. It can be literally a couple of sentences, and it's a really good place to get started. What I would also say is don't get disheartened, because people sometimes they'll make 2 or 3 videos and then they're like, oh, well, I hardly got any views. It's not working. It does take time to get into a flow and get into a strategy, and you do need to be consistent. And I would say as well that YouTube, a lot of businesses will say, oh, it's not for me, I'm not a YouTuber. But back to what Dylan says, it is the second biggest search engine in the world. So why would you not be there if if you could? So I would definitely think about having a wee look at YouTube, seeing as another platform that you might just be visible on. And again, repurposing that content. You can make a short for YouTube, you could put it onto TikTok, you could put it onto a reel. So repurposing that content and really planning out where it's going to go is going to be key, and make that strategy work hard for you, and that time that you spend putting into it work hard for you as well. So a lot of work for people to go off and do and think about, but once you get into a flow and, as you say, you set aside what is manageable for you and stick to it, I think you'll really reap the benefits.
Yeah, 100%. I think no matter what, people often look at things, oh, is it a bit of a digital trend? Is it a fad? Video is going absolutely nowhere. That is not going to change anytime in the near future. So as Michelle, Dylan have said, stick at it, give it a go, and try not to be disheartened by things like Netflix. Views don't necessarily mean everything. So I suppose try something, do a wee bit of research, come up with a simple, easy to follow, budget friendly strategy, and see where it can go, and the impact it can have on your business. Well, thank you both. It's been another really interesting ProfileTree podcast episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any thoughts or feedback on our episode or any ideas for any future topics we could discuss, please let us know. Thanks for listening.